Okay, you good?
Okay.
You ready now?
I
All the
think
coughs
so.
are out. You
I
got any
hope so.
farts? Anything? You ready to go?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. maybe.
Hello and welcome to We Watch TV, the podcast about the TV that we watch. I am Daniel. She is Hope. We are tired.
So tired.
We drove 15 hours yesterday, roundabout.
Yeah, because normally the drive, it's like 12 hours with no stops. So normally about like 13-ish, 14-ish hours. But we hit South Carolina, which is the state we hate driving through the most.
It's awful.
So boring. It's awful. The bathrooms are awful. It's not fun. Got hit with some rain. As you know, if anybody's ever made this drive before, that's where traffic can start to have some issues. So we got stuck in traffic with rain, and it was pretty miserable. Our trip down was great.
Yeah, we paid for it on the way back. It basically rained from South Carolina to Virginia.
And it was annoying rain half the time. We were listening to other podcasts, not just, our fabulous podcast. Could barely hear it because it would rain so hard. Then it would stop. Then we stopped at Taco Bell for lunch. Twice because Chick-fil-A is not open on Sunday.
Because the first Taco Bell...
Oh, we stopped for Taco Bell twice?
Remember?
Oh, the first one didn't have a drive-thru.
Didn't have a drive-thru.
It's like in a crubby, a sketch-looking gas station. So then we stopped at the second one. I specifically asked for no beans.
That one.
And what did they give me?
Yeah, they gave you beans.
But it was too late. We were already pulled away because the beans were buried underneath the stuff, so it was deceptive.
That second Taco Bell where we did eat, the drive-thru wasn't working.
And it was a drive-through we should have known when it was
it was a
Taco Bell /
KFC.
It's like the worst combination
The
I could
smell
ever think
in
of.
there was unique.
I'm still mad about those beans.
I know, you will forever be
ruin
mad
the
about
integrity of the meal. But you know what really makes me mad? I should have just been able to have Chick-fil-A.
That's true. But that's what you get for driving on a Sunday.
It's always disappointing when you no longer have Disney food after enjoying the
we have
Disney
no
food
idea.
for a week.
We are recording this. Then we have to figure out what's for dinner.
Yeah,
I have no
tonight.
idea what's for dinner.
We are,
I don't
because
wanna
we
cook.
love you guys. We're coming through for you. We don't know what we have for dinner. We have hardly any food in the house. We barely had any beverages, and I'm a beverage goblin in this house. So Daniel had to go. You just went to the Dollar General.
They didn't even have what we wanted.
They didn't even have what we wanted. We are thriving, but we're coming for you anyway.
I did find this beer that I just opened in the back of the fridge, so I'm going to enjoy that while we podcast.
I apparently have an expired pop in there I could have.
Yeah.
I should probably hydrate and
Crack
have
it
some
open.
water.
Yeah.
Running on coffee and a
not
dream.
Not to beat you while you're down. But
Me?
I did, before we get into Ted Lasso, which is I think pretty much the only thing we've got to talk about today.
Yes.
I had a pretty major victory while we were on vacation, and I want to make sure that I really stamp this home. It wasn't an argument. It was a discussion. It was a debate.
It wasn't even a debate. It was more of like a discussion.
I didn't just win.
A conversation.
I ran up the score.
You acted like how Urban Meyer's old football teams did, where they'd be playing some podunk team no one's ever heard of, and he's like, well, I want to make sure, even though everybody loves Ohio State anyway, he's like, I want to make sure that we're going to get in the playoffs, so we're going to just hammer this score home against, like, Athens University. I don't know. I'm just making up schools now.
It was to the point where every time it kept happening, I actually was getting embarrassed.
And
I was like, they've got to stop
don't
this.
get a lot of victories.
I
So
don't
this
get a
would be
lot of
like your
victories.
Cinderella story, if you will, since it's fitting. Cinderella, since we did just, if you haven't been following our Instagram,
If you haven't been paying attention,
please do so, because we posted a lot of content. We spent a great week in Walt Disney World. Go ahead and explain your rare victory where you ran the score up on me.
I forgot my belt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really very simple. We went on vacation. It was our first day, and I was unpacking.
You didn't notice it that evening because we were so tired.
I was just wearing the comfortable pants that I was wearing to drive in, so I didn't notice. And dinner was a whole. I did not win the dinner, but I won our other
Daniel
conversation.
overeats when he's happy.
I may have stuffed a bunch of barbecue down my throat.
And then drank a whole vanilla milkshake.
Drank a whole vanilla milkshake.
Chased down with 3 beers and a mixed drink and a cocktail.
And that Buc-ee's sandwich I had about 2 hours before that.
I only had two or three sips of my milkshake when I was like, you know what? This ain't it right now. So I won dinner.
I make poor decisions. Anyways.
Dinner was good, though.
Dinner was good.
Anyway.
It wasn't good.
Just
coming
go.
back.
Just go.
Anyways,
just go.
so I forgot my belt, which was annoying. I did have enough.
Literally the one thing that I don't micromanage of our packing process. I'm always like, okay, we have this with my checklist. I have a little checklist on my phone. I even ask you what shirts. I'm like, hey, did you make sure you pack your shirt that you got from Old Navy that has Donald and Goofy on it? Did you make sure you did this? But because you're always so like, men just have this thing with belts, I guess. I just naturally assumed that you would pack your belt. So now I'm going to have to start putting Daniel's belt on my checklist. Thank you for that.
And so I was fortunate that I had pants that didn't need a belt.
Yeah.
And I was able to wear them. But what did I say to you when I noticed that I didn't have a belt?
You were like, oh, I forgot my belt. And I'm like, well, we might have to. So we drove down there, obviously, as you know. So I'm like, well, maybe we'll have to go to like Walmart or something, because I know there's a Walmart near Disney. And you're like, oh no, I should be able to buy one like in the parks. I'm like, the parks are not going to sell like men's belts. Like, I just thought that would be the most random thing to sell. I'm like, I'll like, give you like wallets, like toothbrushes, obviously. Like, let me think of other like household, like socks. Of course, there's always socks at Disney. Pants, shorts, t-shirts.
And what did he say?
And I text my dad, and Dad's like, oh, he should be able to buy a belt in the parks, no problem. And I'm like, Mom, though, my mom was like, oh, you guys could go to Walmart real quick if you need to. And I was like, okay, well, maybe Disney sprains then. And Dad's like, no, he should be able to get one like in the parks. I'm like, what belts are they selling in the parks?
And so we went to Magic Kingdom the first day. And
at
we
the
went
Emporium.
Into the Emporium, the biggest store there.
Mm-hmm.
And we asked the CM, hey, do you guys have belts? And what was the answer, Hope?
She's like, oh, we do, but we're sold out. And I'm like,
so not only do they have them,
but they're sold out.
They're sold out.
So then we check.
Then we checked at our resort.
Yeah, at Wilderness Lodge
Do
gift
they have
shop.
them at the resort?
And she was like, oh, absolutely. Come back, follow me. Then she like kind of looks around at the section they're in, and she's like, oh. She's like, it looks like we're all cleaned out of them right now. I'm like, what? Then Hollywood Studios acted like they had never heard of belts, though.
That is correct.
But Hollywood Studio, I'm going to just give it.
That was
Our Hollywood Studios day was just crazy. Like, Hollywood Studios right now, ever since they've opened Galaxy's Edge, has just been almost a nightmare. And I love Hollywood Studios. I think Galaxy's Edge is fantastic. I like Toy Story Land. I've had one trip since Galaxy's Edge has been opened during the day at Hollywood Studios that the park wasn't just chaos. And that was a day like a bunch of rides weren't working. Like all the big rides, Slinky rides, were all down in the morning. So it's not surprising to me that when I asked, not only did she not know if they didn't carry belts, that she acted like she didn't know what a belt like physically was. Yeah. So I was like, you know what, it's the vibe for today, whatever. So I'm not going to even count that as points for me.
That's fine. And
Redacted.
Then we got to Epcot.
Epcot Connect Creations.
Yeah, but they didn't have my size.
Yeah, so we finally, she's like, oh, yes, we have them. If you need belt, at least this is where they are at Creations. And I think it's kind of this section at other places. She takes us back where all the new magic bands are on the wall. Then, there's, what was beside the belts? There were some kind of other accessories there.
It was just like random stuff.
I was going to say, it wasn't like sunglasses or anything, because that's a whole other vibe. And yeah, so we finally find the belts, but they were pretty much just at this point, you would have had to been real skinny. Not that you're not skinny. But and that's why, and at first you confused me because you were like, well, this is the biggest size and it doesn't fit me. And I'm like looking around, no offense to other people, I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm like, you are not the biggest person in this park. By a stretch, he's like, no, I mean the biggest. I thought you meant that was the biggest size they had. So
no.
I thought I was like, are we getting another point that they only sell kids belts? But it's clearly because enough men forget their darn belts that apparently Disney can't keep them on the shelves. Is that like, do other wives, like moms, I know like typically, I'm not trying to be sexist, but the woman typically I feel like manages the packing process. The men put it in the car like a Tetris, game, whatever. But like, I feel like in general, for the most part, because I'm going to generalize, it's typically the woman, does most of the packing, makes the lists. Should we include that on our checklist now?
Own clothes.
Okay, you pack your own clothes, but I tell you what to pack. I'm like, bring this.
You don't have to tell me to pack underwear.
Thankfully, but Daniel, I distinctly remember one time when you were getting ready to go to a conference and you couldn't find like one of your the smaller gym bags before we had the smaller suitcases, and you started pulling out like a Walmart bag, this was in our 20s. And I'm like, you can't bring your clothes to a hotel in a grocery bag.
I dispute this.
Okay.
It was one of the reusable bags. It wasn't a Walmart bag.
Okay. It was a pretty good vacation. We hope you guys enjoyed following along. We might talk about more later. First off, before we get into things, tell me, what is the best park in Walt Disney World? I've had people ask me this all day. I always say Epcot is the best part, best park, even though Magic Kingdom, I think personally, is my favorite park. But that's always how I get around answering that question that you guys all ask me all the time. What park do I like the best? Epcot is the best. Magic Kingdom is technically my favorite. Therefore, I don't have to choose. But they're all great.
Hollywood Studios was not great this trip.
But but it is a good park if you remove the people.
If you could be in there just me and you, and
like
all
we
the
did
rides
it after
work,
hours,
and
yeah.
all the rides work without breaking down 15 times.
It was kind
Hollywood Studios is a lot of fun.
And that's why, I honestly miss the old days with the Streets of America, the Backlot tour.
The Ninja Turtles used to be there.
Okay, the Ninja Turtles haven't been there since that 1 year, in the early 90s. I think that'd be awesome if they brought him back, though. But I think now Nickelodeon's in charge of.
Yeah, Nickelodeon.
So they would be at Universal.
So. Yeah, probably if they're anywhere.
They're anywhere. Anyway, you know what else is great? Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to be organized like I was with Maisel because I was still so emotionally charged after it. We had to pack that night, even though we still forgot Daniel's belt. Apparently. Yeah, and then we went on vacation, and then I just spent yesterday 15 hours in a car, got up, went straight to work this morning. So I'm kind of, the energy's low, but we're gonna give you guys our best efforts. I've had so many people ask me what I thought about the Ted Lasso finale, and I started going ahead and being like, "Oh, this is what I thought." Then I'm like, you know what? Listen to the podcast. Has anybody asked you about it?
No, nobody cares what I think about things.
That's not true. They love your Star Trek takes. So I've been told.
You
sure wore a Star Trek shirt in Disney.
I did. It was great. I got no comments about it.
But didn't we find something out about Star Trek though on Twitter? Like Donald Duck,
there was a picture of Donald Duck wearing
Donald is my favorite character.
Original of the Disney series blue uniform top. Yeah.
I would love to get a plush of that made, like a little stuffed animal.
Yeah. I don't.
That'd be one that you would support me buying, right?
The Twitter profile was trying to find more information about it, so we really don't know where it came from.
A Disney Star Trek episode would have been amazing.
We talked about that last time.
We did.
Yeah.
But again, Data could be like, why is no one having fun in the happiest place on earth? Why are these people fighting?
Didn't I say that to you as we were going to Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yeah.
Captain, I do not understand. This is the happiest place on earth, but no one seems to be happy. Anyways, Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episode 12, the finale, the series finale,
Air quotes, question mark.
What'd you think?
I wasn't ready for it to end, so I have a lot of thoughts, and it's going to be really hard for me to articulate them. I thought it was a good finale. I like when you can always get me with music. That's nice. It's interesting that for the Maisel finale discussion, if you guys go back and watch that episode, or if you listen to that episode, I said one of the things that sometimes finales do that get on my nerves is when they do a lot of callbacks to the pilot, unless it's done well. This episode did that, but it did it well. It did a lot of little blink, like wink and or wink. I can't even talk today, guys. Blink and you miss it, like the guy in the airport that's from the first season. Just certain little moments. So they did have those callbacks which is a trope, and it is, sometimes I think it can be a lazy way to write a finale, is to just make the little, winks to the pilot, but it worked for this one. They did it well. They didn't completely rely on that to accomplish what they want.
For me, that guy showing back up at the airport, it wasn't until I got on social media that I even remembered that was
really?
a callback. Yeah, I did remember that. So I think
you were just like, who's this guy?
Who's this guy? I mean, it's because it's been how long since we watched season 1 of Ted Lasso?
We talked about this in another podcast.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it's I have trouble
and
remembering
we binged season 1.
Yeah.
Because we binged season 1, then we started season 2, and then I was like, okay, next episode, and then I was like, oh my gosh, we're live. What? We have to wait another week. What? So that's always just, crutching when you're making your way through a show and you have to wait till the next week. But anyway, other than that, I thought it was a good finale. I can say that I'm a little surprised that a lot of people online were surprised that Ted left. because I never thought he was going to be in the UK forever. I always thought that he would end up going home. I never thought it was going to be a forever job. I mean, the reason why Rebecca brought him on at first was, because he was kind of dopey and she was trying to screw Rupert over. Yeah. And then they ended up being close, and obviously that relationship was friendship-based, of course, just evolved and developed into this, almost like family-type connection. But even with that, like from just a pure coaching standpoint, yes, Ted Lasso has changed that team for the better, and he's done things, but he's still like he doesn't know much about football, soccer.
He was running away from his problems by leaving.
And they bring that up when you learn about his dad, what happened. I always thought that he would find out, like he would leave the team, and they kind of solidified it for me, especially with the episode. Even before when his mom visited, I was like, "Oh, Ted's going to end this, and he's going to go back home, and that's how they're going to end this."
I enjoyed the finale. That second to last episode was the best episode of the season.
Yeah,
for me personally.
I thought that was really poignant, one.
And I'll say, I thought this was a great finale. I loved
the Daniel seal of
the finale. I thought it was excellent for a lot of the reasons that I've seen people online not liking it.
What would you rate it? I know you don't like to rate things out of a scale of 10. You can do 0.5s too.
9.5.
Really? I thought you were going to do 10 out of 10.
9.5.
9.5 is my rating as well. It would have probably gotten a 10 out of 10 for me, but there were a couple little things that I'm going to have to pick at, just because I think it's unfair not to, just because I love the cast, I love the show, but I don't like some of the stuff that people were upset that Ted and Rebecca didn't end up together romantically. The only time I maybe got a vibe that they could have been was when it turned out she and Sam had been texting through that like dating app, and I thought, oh my gosh, are they going to go there with Ted? And because they made it seem like it was her and Ted, they tricked it, and I was like, that's going to be weird. Yeah, and you don't need that.
And they taunted those people at the beginning of
the
episode.
They did, because I thought, oh my gosh, are they going to do fan service and actually hook them up? No way. I was like, what's the shtick on this? And then Beard and Jade shit up.
They were never going to do that because that's not what the show is about.
And it is about relationships, but not everything has to be romantic.
Correct, yes.
And I never, so that wasn't, I think some people were really upset that Ted left. I always figured he was going to leave. I think we talk about how this is possibly the series finale. I think now, especially, it's made a lot of money. I do think that there's definite potential for a spinoff or a sequel. In some sort, but I do think Jason Sudeikis is probably done. I think we could see the character of Ted again, but like the end, he says, it was never about me, where he changes the name of Trent Crimm's book instead of the Lasso way to the Richmond way, and I think that Ted's storyline is kind of sewn up for now. And then people were talking to, a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, did he get back together with his ex-wife? And I'm like, what? I'm like, I just got the vibe that they were co-parenting, and if they are back together, good for him.
Why would she not come to his soccer game?
Yeah. And that's where Ted, that's where his son lives. And when he left, he didn't have another home. I think it's clear to me that stupid Dr. Jacob is out of the picture.
I have to get that out of my brain right now and into the universe and tell everybody from a technical standpoint, please. Ted left her before they were divorced.
Yes.
To go to Richmond. He did not have another home in the United States. So the only place it makes logical sense for him to go to when he gets back is the house that he and his wife used to live in.
And his son is there. Duh.
That's the only place he has stuff.
And
I guess
he
could have gone to his mom's
immediately.
But that wouldn't have made an emotional impact at the end of the finale of the show if he'd showed up at his mom's house. So he went there. That wasn't to indicate that they were back together or anything like that. You're reading it into it. You weird shippers. Some shows can be satisfying.
I don't even think that's just
shipping.
Stuff. I don't think anybody, but Daniel, I don't even think anybody's shipping his wife.
There are probably a very small group of people.
I don't think anybody shipped him with his wife. Now I
hope it is a television show on TV in the 2020s. Somebody is shipping somebody with everything.
Oh, I'm sure, but I feel like I just got the vibe that they were co-parenting and that there was still love there.
If there are Anakin, Ahsoka shippers out there, there are Ted and his ex-wife shippers. I guarantee it.
Okay, Anakin, Ahsoka, get that out of your mouth. That's so gross.
I didn't say I endorse that
incestuous.
ship, by the way, everyone. I just want to make sure it's
That's
clear.
like a brother-sister thing. Ew. That'd be like I know people that ship Luke and Leia though, but can we? Okay, now you're bringing up another Star show into this. I have to say something too about the Michelle situation. I was not a fan of that woman. Day one, didn't like her because I love Ted. Obviously, I'm getting his perspective, but then we started to learn a little bit more about her. We learned that Jacob, Dr. Jacob, who Ted, that's one of the reasons why he didn't like therapists. Can I just say that Dr. Jacob should lose his license?
Yeah, probably.
Not only, he literally was there to help them. I think he was her therapist initially. I don't think Ted was really seeing him, but they hooked up. That was her medical, especially, for such you have a very intimate relationship with your therapist, and not in like the sexual way, but like, they get to know you. I think that it's very possible that Dr. Jacob took advantage of that situation.
Sure. I agree. Yeah. So
that kind of took Michelle, and I realized that I was seeing it through that lens.
Well,
it didn't take until, I have to get this out, till the second to last episode where Ted's mom came to visit, that my eyes were opened to Michelle. The way Ted's mom acted was very much how Ted would act.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and he's like, why can't we ever just talk about anything? And if you go back and watch the previous episodes where Michelle visited, like the very first ones, not when she comes back with Dr. Jacob, or like when they're talking or whatever, and she's like, he's just doing that like happy-go-lucky crap with her. And you see Ted get frustrated with his mom because it's like an avoidance.
Yes.
And you think about that had to have been very hard to be around somebody like that. They couldn't have real conversations. So yeah, of course. And she's probably even more frustrated because everybody else is seeing Ted as this great guy. And she's like, that's not what I'm getting at home.
She's the only person that sees him in the
And
way
I'm not
yeah.
super defending her, but I see it now from another perspective. And then you lay that Dr. Jacob layer on. So that's where I can say, one, again, I didn't view it as them being back together. I thought they're co-parenting, but if they do get back together because Ted had to heal a little bit, she had to learn a little bit, you know what? I'm good with it if that works for them.
Sure.
But ultimately, I don't really think Ted honestly chose his happiness. He put his son's happiness ahead of his own.
Absolutely. That's what a lot of people...
And that's what parents do. That's what good parents do.
I saw people say he didn't look happy at the end. And...
it was stoic.
It was stoic. Not everything is a happy ending.
Yeah, not everything is 100% happy. There's sacrifices that must be made, and that's real. And I do like that Ted Lasso puts that realism in there. And he knew he didn't want to obviously, he's still very affected what happened to his father. Sure. He knew he needed to stop running, communicate, be there for his son. And people are like, well, how stupid that he's coaching his son's soccer game. And I'm like, that's great. Like, what is wrong with you? Who hurt you?
Listen, go back to season 1 when he was eating in the Indian restaurant with Trent Krem, and he
formerly of the Independent.
And he told him 2 times. He said in the second time, "I want you to make sure you heard me. I want to make sure you heard me. I don't care about the wins or losses. I care about making these young men be the best versions of themselves." Mm-hmm. Okay. There's no better coach to coach the age of his son.
Be a goldfish.
Yeah, than that kind of attitude in a person.
Absolutely.
Because it's not about wins and losses at that age. It's about helping young people grow.
You're going to get everyone gets a participation trophy crowd after you.
No, I mean...
It's about learning the fundamentals, learning the game. I think I've always been the type that I'm like, yes, you do need to teach kids how to lose. You do. But in an appropriate way. And that's Ted would bring a good balance to that.
It's a balance. You can't be...
You're not going to win all the time.
You can't be the crazy people that
but you also can't be
to the nth degree and put so much pressure on freaking 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
But you do have to teach kids to put forth effort and understand the rules and give that they can lose. And like Jean-Luc Picard once said, you can do everything right and still lose.
Absolutely. You can work harder than your teammate and they might be better than you still because they have more natural talent. And that's something that some people are just better at other things. And I can definitely say, I think even like high school age into college age, we put too much pressure on athletics. Our whole country's lost its mind. And I say this as somebody who was a former collegiate athlete who used to get a lot more intense about sports games. I've really calmed down about that. But I definitely had a lot of
time.
pressure on me, like to be I was a runner. I ran cross country and I ran track, and I felt a lot of pressure to be like the best.
I think we both felt that.
Yeah.
In different ways.
In different ways.
I pressured a lot of my personal pressure was more self-imposed.
Yeah, and I had self-imposed, but I also had outside factors too.
Yeah, you had both.
So sports in this country, that could be a whole other topic.
How awesome would it have been to have
a Ted Lasso type coach?
Ted Lasso as your coach.
It would have been amazing, and I think I would have benefited from it.
I would have benefited as well.
I'm a Roy Kent type.
I'm
not a Jamie. I'm not totally arrogant. You know how Roy Kent at the beginning of the season when Trent Cram first came onto he's like, I'm going to come write a book. Can I shadow the team?
Yeah.
And Roy had this clipping that Trent wrote about him, like from Roy's first game.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That level of psycho is like something I would do. Like, you talk crap on me. Like, I could hear 100 compliments and then one negative criticism. And unfortunately, I'm trying to get better at this. I will latch onto that negative criticism. It's like how Leslie Knope does in the Parks and Rec episode where they have the focus group and everyone likes her but the one person, and then he says he doesn't think she'd be fun to hang out with.
Right.
And she's like, someone tell him, Ron, tell him I'm good at bowling. Like, that is how I am. And I see a lot of myself in Roy Kent at times. I know a lot of people that might know me on the outside surface see this smiling, happy person, but I can be a lot like Roy Kent. And I got this silent little Cheshire cat grin at me over here because you see it.
Yeah.
Everyone's probably like, oh, Hope's a Keeley. And I'm like, no. I'm like a Roy Kent mixed with a dash of Rebecca and then a sprinkle of Keeley. But Ted Lasso, that's what I mean when I said, from like the game itself wasn't the best coach, but he's what that team needed to come in and put them to the place they are now.
It sounds like a cliche because it is a cliche, but positive thinking is powerful.
It is.
It is very powerful. And if you've never been on a sports team and playing at a level of, competence that is putting you in pressure situations, you may not understand, but positive thinking in those situations is a huge advantage. And there are coaches that can do it, and there are coaches that cannot do it.
And then another thing that I really liked about the finale was we have seen this team grow. We've seen the players on this team evolve. We've gotten to know a little more. We've got to know a lot about Sam, about Colin, Jamie. Like, Jamie had the most growth, I think, of anybody in the series.
Oh, for sure. I think without a doubt he has the most growth.
And you and I know that everybody that if you've played like sports in high school, you know what like it's like to be on a team. But I think the closest that we would get to like a professional type sports is if you ever played sports collegiately. It's even different than high school because you live with these people.
Yes.
You travel every weekend with these people. It's not the same as high school. Like, at all. Like, you're staying in hotel rooms constantly. I know some people might be like, whoa, my high school team, we would go to overnight meets, blah, blah, blah. Well, unless you were a super rich high school team, I doubt you went to overnight meets every single weekend throughout the fall, the winter, and the spring, like what we did with, track and cross country. Because we both ran I was on scholarship for cross country and track, and you had a scholarship on track, but you also ran cross country.
Yes.
To help get in shape for track, which you actually like cross country better now. It's a whole other vibe. But we both, so they have this, like, Beard puts that video together.
Yeah.
Not the best idea to show an emotional montage video with music before your last game where there's, title implications and league implications. You and I got choked up at that because it is a time in your life that when you're in it, it's great. It can be stressful. Even if you don't super like these people and wouldn't hang out with them otherwise, when they're on your team and you have that bond, you have that connection, they become your family. They're part of you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's such and I think it's
such a big impact on your life.
Impact on your life and really
the number one part of your life at that time.
It is everything. And then it's gone. Within a
heartbeat,
it's gone. Like, it's really not long. Like, for us, it was 4 years of our life, and that's it.
I remember turning around the final 200 of my last track race, because your last race was you'd already ran that day, right? You'd already finished yours.
I was done at that point.
You did one lap around the track.
I did one lap. Yes.
How many laps did I do? I don't even remember. Like 26.
26. Yeah.
Because I did the 10,000. My first time ever racing the 10,000 was also it's not my last time because I've done 10Ks on road races, but for a track. specifically. I knew that I would get points for my team if I did that race. Like a lot of times people were like, well, what do you think about during races? I would either think about passing the next person, or to be quite frank, I didn't think at all. Like I was just in the moment. That I actually have a visceral like memory of knowing like when I cross this finish line, everything's going to be different.
Yep. Like
and
any race you do from now on will be different.
Yeah.
You won't be wearing the uniform. You won't be.
I won't have my teammates. I won't be
I
going
mean,
back to the hotel room eating some crappy pizza with my teammates, trying to hang up our sweaty clothes in the hotel room that smells like cat pee.
Cramming into the bus, the van. I'm sorry, not even a bus.
Yeah, the van.
Driving back, all that stuff. Yeah.
Getting Taco Bell at 2 a.m. where they didn't screw up my order back then.
And we're waxing a little bit about some stuff in our personal lives here,
but that's why we like
Ted
Lasso.
Yeah.
It can connect to everybody, and that moment really got me. And then I do feel like they have enough, like Ted's story. His story, I felt like, was the most complete. Yes, I think we could see Ted again, but they left, I feel like, the other characters very open-ended.
I feel like
that they could do that sequel. They can do a spinoff.
Especially with Roy. His story just started.
It really did.
Like walking into that therapist's office.
Mm-hmm.
His story has just begun.
When Roy, okay, so I have, as we all know, such love for Roy Kent. Not only do I love him, he is definitely at some moments this season, especially where he's kind of irritated me and he's let me down a little bit.
Yeah. But I think he's recognized. And
yes.
He's recognized that he was a letdown in those scenarios as well.
I identify with him, like I said, in some of like the whole like Trent Krim thing, how he kept that newspaper clipping. But honestly, my favorite moment from the entire finale was when Roy almost chose himself to better himself. He made that decision to go into therapy because I've been there. That felt, again, how Ted Lasso can feel so personal, where you finally make the decision. And like at first, you know, I probably was doing therapy not so much for myself, but for other people. And then when you finally decide, like, I want to get help, it's like I'm trying not to cry right now looking at you. It's like an emotional thing. Like it is to choose yourself. And he asked if he could be a diamond dog. I thought that was great. And like the whole Roy Keeley relationship, you were like assuming they were back together a couple episodes ago. And I was like, I don't think they're back together. Mistake. I was like, I think they just hooked up. I was like, I don't think Keeley's interested at this time, because she was very hurt by Roy, like basically dumping her because he was so, you know, insecure in his own life. And then at the beginning of the episode, which I'll get into the part I did not like here in a few minutes, but I definitely think in my head, eventually Roy and Keeley do get back together, but they can't be together right now until Roy, you know, kind of works on himself a little bit. He doesn't know what he wants to do with himself.
And the part that you don't like that you'll talk about here in a minute, as much as you don't like that
I didn't like it because it was sloppy writing.
But that final moment where she tells him and Jamie to figure it out.
Okay, I didn't mind that moment.
But that is the final nail in the coffin
I'm talking about a previous moment.
I know which one you're talking about. What I'm saying is, like, all of that had to come to fruition.
Yeah, and I just wish they had done that a little bit sooner, some of that. And I will, again, explain my thoughts on that here in a few minutes after I get this out. But I definitely think that, you know, Keeley I think she still loves Roy for sure. But she's realized it took Keeley a long time to really feel confident in herself. Mm-hmm. And Roy kind of crushed her confidence a little bit. He got insecure thinking he was holding her back, and I think that kind of hurt her, and it set her back a little bit, like, you know, just not feeling very good about herself. And she's finally to a place where I feel like a season ago when Rebecca offers and say, you know what? I'm rich. I can help you out with your company. I don't think Keeley would have accepted the money because she'd have been like, I don't deserve this.
Right.
She knows she can do it.
Yeah.
She knows that she and Barbara, who we like now that stayed, can do it. And the part at the end that I really liked with Keeley was the women's team proposal with Rebecca. But I'll get to the part that I don't like. Okay, so all season I've been waiting for this to happen. And because shows do this. I was like, okay, we know Keeley and Jamie used to date. Now Roy and Keeley are a thing, but Roy and Jamie are evolving this growing relationship that I love, and I'm like, I don't like love triangles. I realize the Vampire Diaries was okay because I knew that was the premise of one, but usually I can't stand it, especially when friendships are on the line. And I'm like, I kept waiting for them. I was like, are they going to address it? And then I was like, okay, maybe they're not going to be cliche like every show, that I've ever watched. And they're just going to move on from it and be adults and it's not going to be a thing. And I'm like, please don't make this a thing. And guess what? I thought finally it's not going to be a thing. Yay. Like they didn't do it. And then they wait till that dead last episode. I would have been fine. I know you couldn't do it early at the beginning of the season because he and Jamie were still growing that relationship, but I would have preferred them to not shoehorn that in the finale and have done it a couple episodes ago. I knew the moment like Roy saw Jamie and Keely talking where Keely was just like, heck yes, I'll go with you, to help promote Jamie, even if Jamie had another agenda in mind. But as soon as Roy goes over and is like, hey, do you want to go grab a beer? And poor little Jamie, who I really think that Jamie just thought Roy wanted to take him out for a beer. And then it wasn't until they're actually having the beers where Jamie's like, hold up, are you jealous? And he's like, you and Keely aren't together anymore. She was with me first. And then Jamie kind of regressed a little bit, which is normal. You often regress to old patterns. But I just wish, that's why I give it a 9.5 out of 10. Like, I wish they hadn't done that. I wish they would have done it differently or addressed it sooner because it was a little cliche. That being said, they did resolve it very quickly after he and Jamie, I guess the actor that plays Roy had said, hey, for all you know, we might end up ripping each other's clothes off or something. And they kind of did, but in a fight manner because people were asking about how him and Jamie are, and they're still friends.
Yeah, they are.
And I think eventually, and this is what I like why I say it this way, eventually they were going to have to discuss it. It was going to have to be a conversation. I didn't want it to be like the little love triangle way. I would have rather just them talked about it. Even when they were like learning to, like he was helping Roy like ride bikes in the Amsterdam episode. I think that would have been a good time to bring it up. I did not like that they did that in the finale. It kind of left a soured mark on it and it bothered me. And it bothered a lot of other people too. I do like that, they finally had that out. Roy realized, again, he screwed up again. Mm-hmm. He was being selfish again. And then them both asking Keely was being selfish. I like to say Keely pulled a Kelly Taylor from 90210 by choosing herself in that situation and not either one of them. But she was like, you guys are both idiots. And I definitely think of the two, I don't think Keely, do you think Keely has any romantic interest in Jamie at this point?
I don't really get that impression, no.
I think she kind of sometimes looks at Jamie as, man, why didn't you act like how you are now when we were together? But I don't think she has any lingering feelings. I definitely think she does have feelings for Roy.
I would agree with that statement.
But she knows right now that that's not healthy for her. And I think in Roy, at the end, after because he goes to ask to be a Diamond Dog because he wants to talk about the relationship. He knows he screwed up with Jamie. And he and Jamie are still good, but he knew that he kind of regressed. He was acting like a jealous idiot. And
the Diamond Dogs is what leads him, I think, ultimately to
make the
choice to go to work on himself with therapy because...
In that moment where Roy walks through that door of the therapist office, in my opinion, was the best ending, or as we say, beginning that Roy Kent could have. When he was with the Diamond Dogs and he was like, because basically Roy's like, I've been trying to be different.
Yeah.
I've been trying to be hard. Like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm trying and I'm still failing. I'm still a crap person. And I can't remember who said it. If it was Beard or Higgins?
It was Higgins.
Are you sure? Because Beard was saying some things
No,
too.
it was Higgins.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
They said, human beings are never going to be perfect, Roy. The best we can do is to keep asking for help and accepting it when you can. And if you keep on doing that, you'll always be moving towards better. And that's true. Yeah. That shows you're never going to be perfect, but you've got to, if you keep trying and you actually ask for help like what Roy did.
Recognize that you're not perfect and try to be better, knowing that it's a journey and there's no destination to it.
And even if you think about it a little bit too, like while Jamie has had such character growth as well, he kind of showed that some of his was not phoning it in. I don't know what the words to think about, like trying to walk on eggshells, almost not quite being himself because he was afraid. They're like, go be an arrogant Jamie, get us these points.
Especially on the soccer field.
Yeah,
go be that guy now.
Go be that guy. We need you to be that guy. And so, yeah, you did see Jamie regress a little bit, but I think at the end, the two of them, I mean, they're clearly still hanging out. They were able to have that out. And I think ultimately if Keely and Roy do get together, I think Jamie will back off. I think they'll be friends. And I think they're going to be just fine. Well, I just wish they had addressed this a couple episodes ago and not soured the finale with it.
Yeah. And I think ultimately like this wasn't. Neither of their journey was about Keeley.
No.
For Roy, it was about realizing that he needs to do something with his life, and he doesn't know what he wants to do with his life.
Yeah.
And for Jamie, I mean, there was a lot going on with his
growing
story.
out of that egotistical
Growing out of that egotistical kid, coming to terms with
his relationship with his father.
Right, exactly.
Which another thing people were upset about, to see that his father is clearly in a rehab facility. At first, I thought his father was in prison, but it looked to me like a rehab facility.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
And people were like, "Oh, I don't like it at all that Jamie's back speaking to him and hanging out with him." And I'm like, he's his dad. At the end of the day. And if his dad's in rehab, maybe he's going to try to get better.
He's trying to work on himself.
And maybe you need to give people chances. I think sometimes you can give people chance after chance after chance, and they burn you, and then the appropriate thing is to be done with them. But that's for you to decide as an individual. And I think ultimately it would be great if I doubt Jamie's dad will ever be perfect, but if they can have a moment where they smile together, because Jamie loves his dad.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why people were so upset about that. And we talk about like kind of that like walking on eggshells perfect thing. I think that there are so many, like we said, Roy's story is just beginning. We could even see more of Jamie. Nate. The show got me to like Nate again, but I feel like at the end, Nate has he's kind of healed some issues with his parents. His girlfriend has helped him out a little bit. What's his girlfriend's name? Do we remember her name?
Jade.
I thought Jade was Beard's girlfriend. What is Nate's girlfriend's name?
Huh.
No, it is Jade. We've been saying it. Sorry, listeners. Jane is Beard's girlfriend. Yes. And we cannot go back and edit that again. So
Nor will we.
They're two set. Jade. Come on, writers.
Yeah, I mean, Nate is in
that's a writer faux pas, having names that sound the same. That's kind of like, again, like Tolkien, all his names sound the same.
Sauron, yeah.
Anyway, Nate he's changed. He's definitely sorry.
We're getting the trifecta in this episode.
We
got
really
a Star Trek reference. We got a Star Wars reference. We got a Lord of the Rings reference. If I could just get some Battlestar Galactica up in here. 15-hour drive yesterday.
But Nate, I think Nate, there's still probably that little bit of Nate that still wants that kind of attention, that recognition. And I think you could see tempers flare again, even though Nate's getting better too. Like there's definite possibility that we could have the Roy Kent spinoff. Nate could be included. Spinoff about the women's team. You could put everything together. What do you think about Nate and his? I kind of was like, I really wanted more with the scene with him and Ted, but I realized in the previous episode when Nate, I don't remember, whenever Nate comes back to the team, it might have been before that, Ted was always going to forgive Nate.
Ted was always going to forgive Nate.
Because that's who he is.
Yeah.
We were the fans, we were the Beard in the situation.
Correct.
Like, no.
There was never a scenario where Ted wasn't going to just accept him back with open arms.
And I think the way they told Nate's story was I quietly began to like him again. It wasn't I like Nate again. Because I was adamant about how upset I was about what Nate did. And, like, it hurt. It hurt me as a viewer. I felt hurt for Ted. Yeah. And then it just, like, they organically wrote it this season that I just little by little. And then, like, I'm just, crying. And did you see the actor who plays Nate? Because a lot of times prop people won't even write the actual text on scripts, but because cameras and stuff I think are getting so good, they actually had what was written in that letter, and he posted it on Twitter. And I read it, like, in Nate's voice. Did you read that?
I didn't.
Oh, you should. It was good. I
will have to do that.
It was good.
No, I think Nate is one, like, if they go on and tell more stories with this group, without Ted, mm-hmm. Nate will be one of the more interesting because he's I think he reverted almost back to where he was. Not necessarily the media, like he's in a better place now than he was. But
he was definitely being like passive. Like you could tell he's not wanting to make any waves.
The story for him going forward is to get that to learn to have that confidence within him.
Yes.
And to understand he is always going to be that quiet guy in the corner. And I feel very much
you don't need to walk on eggshells like he's doing. He needs to have a little confidence. You feel like the quiet guy in the
I feel
corner?
like that. Often I struggle with being the quiet guy in the corner, and I have something to say, but I don't know if you've seen it happen to me. I'll be in a group of people trying to say something, but I just can't get a word out because I have a quiet voice. It doesn't project. I don't do really anything to project into it, and it's just really easy to just kind of resign yourself to the back of the group, just listening to the conversation without really being involved in it. And it's taken me a long time in my life to learn to have the confidence to push into that conversational atmosphere.
I remember
and I still have to be very comfortable with the people I'm around to do it.
Yeah. When we first met, I said, well, how come you were really always able to talk to me? And you're like, I don't know. You just made me feel comfortable to talk because I don't know. Like, I don't know what I did, but worked out well.
So you gave it a 9.5. I gave it a 9.5.
We haven't even finished talking about Rebecca and Sam.
Well, I want to say why I knocked it down.
Oh, okay.
To that. So
I was like, I'm not done.
The beard wedding CGI.
Terrible green screen. To the point where I'm like, was that a dream sequence? And a lot of people were debating about that.
I think the only reason there is a debate that that's a dream scene is because of that CGI.
It looked terrible.
It was bad.
And I was like, well, maybe it's Beard and
it was
Jane
it was a little
weird.
Embarrassing, honestly, for a show that has such a production quality, and like that was real bad.
Maybe it was a real wedding, but they weren't really at Stonehenge, and they actually set up a green screen. Or maybe they just took some like hallucinogenics. I don't know.
It threw me out of it there.
But the writers have confirmed.
Yeah, they've confirmed that
it was not a dream sequence.
That threw me out of it.
And they weren't Saint Elsewhere-ing the people. I never watched that show, but I know what happens in its finale.
So it threw me out of it, and that at the very end, which is a spot like right there at the end when they're trying to gut punch you with everything. It took me out of it.
And then we're all trying to figure out who the guy is. That's the guy like that he took his pants.
Yeah.
In the Beard episode that no one liked except for us.
It was like the end of Endgame when that kid was standing there at Tony Stark's funeral, and we're like, who is that? And then we remember it's that kid from Iron Man 3 that like everybody forgot about.
Yeah.
So, okay.
'Cause Iron Man 3 wasn't very good.
No, it was not.
But that's why you like, and even the bad green screen for me, I was like, well, for all I know, they weren't actually there. And Beard and Jane, that is her name, right? Jane?
Yeah. See, but here's the thing. I don't like headcanon stuff like that because they didn't do any. If they had done a nod to maybe that being the case, like shown a camera or something, or like on a corner of the screen, you could see the green screen cut. But they were totally. I really think they were trying to go for that. It's just true. For me, what it did was it took me out of a moment where I was having a moment because they were doing that montage of all the, basically the wrap up of all these
song,
characters.
and I'm crying.
And the song, and it was really emotional, and it threw me out as soon as I saw it because I was like, well, this is a little weird.
I'm going to allow that just because the Beard craziness. And then people were like, well, I didn't understand why Beard didn't just go back with Ted. I'm like, oh, I thought it the whole time while Beard's on that plane. I'm like, there's no way that Beard's not going to stay.
Yeah, as soon as Beard opened up to Nate in the episode prior.
And you learned Beard's history with Ted.
Story, and because I already knew Ted was leaving at this point, and anybody who didn't is not paying attention.
You are incorrect.
I knew Beard wasn't leaving. One, because they were going from a meta standpoint. If you're going to do a show forward, you got to have that character around. And two, that character. I think you said this to me actually. I get the feeling that he and Ted have an interesting relationship where they'll just be in each other's lives, and then they won't be, and then they will be again, and then they won't be.
And people are like, "Why wasn't Ted at the wedding?" Well, knowing Beard, I could have seen him being like, "Hey, we're getting married like in 3 days."
Yeah.
I don't think Ted would be offended by that either.
Because I think there's been multiple times in their lives where they have not really had any contact whatsoever, and then all of a sudden Beard shows back up. Believe me, there are people like that. I think everybody knows
people like that in my life.
So,
where I might not talk to somebody for 10 years and then I'll see him and it's like nothing's ever changed.
You mean coming up here in like another month or two?
Whoa!
Got
be quiet.
High school reunion?
No.
Okay. It's not 20 years or anything.
No.
Okay. So you said you want to talk about Rebecca and. Okay,
yes, we have Rebecca's story, her storyline. She has definitely come so far. She went from season 1 where she was so distraught about Rupert. She wanted to ruin what he loved. Then she wanted to beat him. And now she's healed. She's like, you know what? She almost pities Rupert at this point. And she's doing things for her. Like, she sold her some shares of the team to some of the fans. Instead of selling the whole team and making that money, she did it this way. And she's just kind of, I think, she's still on her journey, but it's no longer about Rupert. There's something that I think some people have noticed online, but remember Rupert had given her that painting, and she had taken it down. She put it back up.
Yeah.
And that was a sign of, again, being healing. And you could see, like, when they were calling Rupert, like, a wanker when he was leaving, like, Rebecca was just kind of, like, shrug, like...
you have something about that actor, and you can get to it in a second.
Oh, yeah.
He was excellent as the villain of this show.
Can we say he rocks the villain cape so well?
Oh, man. He was excellent. And that last scene when he comes onto the field, pushes the coach over, and walks out, like, I'm not rooting for the villain, but, like, he was excellent in that moment. The face he was giving.
Yeah.
Because, remember, we got some humanity in him in episodes prior.
It actually, it made me feel almost bad.
Right. Like, he has humanity down in there deep. And to see, and to be walking off that field, to have the fans of the team that he grew up loving. He grew up breaking into that field to watch games, doing that to him.
Rising up, hiring the people that, arrested him or something.
Right. I actually felt a little bit of sympathy for him.
I did.
And I only think the reason that was possible is because that actor did such a good job over the course of the series, being subtle about how
I think a lot of people, though, are disagreeing with us that they didn't feel any sympathy at all for Rupert being called wanker and off the field. And I'm like, man, they humanized him just a little bit for me.
Don't get me wrong.
He absolutely deserved it. He
deserved to be publicly shamed.
What I'm saying is they gave him a little bit of that humanity that while he's getting publicly shamed, which he absolutely 100% deserved, I felt that sadness of, man, didn't have to be this way.
More arrogant people.
You didn't have to be a piece of crap.
More arrogant people in this world deserve to be called wanker by 50,000 people in a stadium
100%.
than get it these days.
But it's just like you think about, like, it could have gone so much different for him. The little boy that snuck in that wasn't to see what he's become. And then they always said that this was the Return of the Jedi season.
They had him totally dressed up like the Emperor.
They had him totally dressed up like the Emperor. And then, like, the former coach who he hired back to coach West Ham.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're all like, hold up, wait a minute, was he Vader? Because he's the one that ended up, like, pushing, like,
yeah. He was like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm
not gonna put a hit on Jamie.
Yeah, exactly.
And that guy probably had a relationship with Jamie, even when Jamie was like, a douchebag. Like, he coached him.
Now, you didn't realize until literally the show ended, like the day after the show ended, where you knew Rupert from.
So Rupert always looked a little familiar to me. I'm not gonna lie, Rupert's not a bad looking dude. He's disgusting and vile. But I'm like, and at first, I guess it didn't bug me enough that I didn't do my usual obsessive, I must IMDb this person right now and pause it. So it never bothered me enough. And I thought, well, maybe he just has one of those faces. So clearly I wasn't that affected. And I was like, Rupert was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He was Giles. You never watched Buffy.
No, I didn't.
Which really shocks me because, you're like a nerd. And doesn't Joss Whedon do that, like, Firefly show everybody likes?
He's only had one season of Firefly.
With Nathan Fillion.
Yeah,
there's only... And all I ever hear about is how there deserves to be more than one season.
Listen, Firefly was fine.
Fine. So it wasn't better than fine.
Yeah, that's it. It was just fine.
Buffy was pretty good up until... I didn't like season 5 with Riley. That was terrible. But yeah, so I finally recognized him. But Rebecca, I think her story is still open-ended. She ended up, like, seeing randomly her little Flying Dutchman dude.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was random. I could see how fans were like, what the heck? Not so much of the Ted and Rebecca thing, but I'm like, I was just, like, okay with it. Like, it doesn't mean that she's going to immediately get together with him. But he did kind of help her relax. Like, my issue there was I never thought that she and Sam were going to get back together 100%, but they did enough winks in more than one episode that I thought, maybe they are, because they would have, like, little shared looks. And it wasn't just one episode where they would share a look. It was multiple. And I kind of thought that maybe we get a little resolution to that. And then the finale, and it was just like, no, we're going to presume that she's going to hook up with this guy, which it is, there's the whole power dynamics with Sam on the team and everything, and her, like, the owner, but
but they did enough.
They did enough winks that I felt like it was kind of odd that it wasn't one addressed at all in the finale, and then this kind of came back in. But again, if we do a spinoff, if we do a sequel, we could have more. And Sam, precious baby.
Okay, I have a couple questions for you.
You don't want to talk about Sam, my precious
baby?
I mean,
yes, he's a precious.
He got to go play for his country's team.
Yeah,
that was just warm. You just want nothing but happiness for Sam.
That's correct. Yes.
All right, fire away with your questions.
Should they do more?
If they do it right, I think they can.
Will they do more?
I think so. I think right now the guy that plays Beard, who's one of the writers, is like, we need a break. But I think the show's done well enough, made Apple enough money. I think Apple will continue to push for it.
I mean, it's their flagship show.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally I watched the morning show and I watched Shrinking, but I would never have watched any of those if it hadn't been for Ted Lasso. If I think that there are still stories to tell amongst these characters, and I think it can't, like we said at the end, like Ted said at the end, and they changed the name of the book. It was never fully about Ted. It wasn't. And I think Ted Lasso's story at this time has the book closed on it. Not that I'm saying we'll never see Ted again, but I think if they're going to go on, it's going to be more like a Roy Kent thing. So I think it will have a different dynamic and a different feel, which that might resonate with people. It might not. I still would like to see more of these characters. I'd like to see something potentially with a women's team. If we never get anything again, I'm also fine with that.
I'm in a very similar place. Like, I certainly would be happy to see more from those characters, in particular, Roy, Beard, Nate, I think is an interesting dynamic. Jamie being on the team. Yeah, he'll still be on the team. But I will be very satisfied if we don't.
Yeah.
I'm very satisfied with the ending of the show. I'm satisfied with where the characters are. I think they are all in better places than where they started.
Except for Rupert.
And the fact of the matter is, that's what the show was trying to tell you, is that you got to work on yourself to get yourself in a better place than where you started. But it's a constant journey. And that's what the ending, like, a lot of people were like, there just weren't enough, like, solid bow tie endings, and it's like, but that's not what life is.
That's not what I wanted.
That's not realistic.
Sometimes I like to think that, like, oh, it's still going on. And everyone's like, oh, well, when Ted left, they were all like still like doing. Yeah, they moved on. Not everyone's just gonna close their chapters. Like you said, Roy chapter's really just beginning. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, okay, so Maisel, on a different side, we had the flash forwards in the future, but you got to see that it wasn't a perfect bow.
No.
With her ending, not at all, and there was still some stuff open ending that you can assume on. I feel like I don't need the tied up bow on every single thing, and I think they did just enough that, like you said, we could have a spinoff, a sequel, but I think it'll feel different if they do. If Ted's not there, it is going to feel different. But even if they don't, I think we can all say, like, okay, they're going to be a women's team. Rebecca's in a good place. Keely's building her company. Jamie's continuing to become a better player. Sam's getting to represent his country. Roy's trying to be a better person, getting help for himself. Trent Crimm's probably going to write. I want to read that book, by the way, because Trent Crimm, he's like the season's show stealer for me. I think they all ended, like you said, in a better place, with the exception of Rupert, of course.
Well, but he was the villain, so.
Yeah, he was the villain.
And who knows? Maybe he learned from it.
Yeah, who knows? It looks like he's got some lawsuits coming his way.
Yeah.
For the way he's treated women. Trash.
You know what? I'll tell you what. If there's a character that isn't obvious for a sequel show, like, I say sequel show, whatever. If they make sequel more of this show just without Ted, I actually want Rupert there.
You want him to show up
I'd
as
like
a foil?
to see what they do with him next.
Yeah, I mean,
again, because that actor just did such a good job.
He really did.
Like
he rocks the villain cape like no other.
He's the kind of villain that when he was on screen, I wasn't just
compelling.
Like, bleh. I was happy he was on screen when he's on screen.
He's compelling, yes. And then when they gave him even a little bit more depth, it worked. But yeah, I would be good with either. I think it was a great soundtrack to the finale. I was listening to the soundtrack so much before we left on vacation. I was like, oh, these are all good songs. I really liked it. The only reason I give it that 9.5 is probably a little bit of the thing you mentioned, that green screen. And I didn't like, I know that again, character regression is normal. I felt like they just put that in the wrong spot. That conversation with Roy and Jamie could have happened in a different episode. And I don't like it that they went down that trope that all shows do. Cause I was like, oh, Ted Lasso is going to be smarter and not do this. And I was like, ugh. So I'd be remiss if I didn't point that out. And then, of course, the whole, like, why did you insert all these little glances between Sam and Rebecca and then absolutely nothing come from it?
With it, yeah.
And I didn't think they were going to get together or have big declarations of love, but to the fact that it was not addressed really at all in that finale.
It wasn't as bad as, like, Finn needing to tell Rey something, but it was not nothing either.
We're going into Star Wars again, folks.
It was not nothing either. There was enough of that glancing going on that you kind of felt like something was going to happen, and then it just did.
I mean, you never know if they do a spinoff or a sequel. You don't have, none of the actors have signed contracts for that we know of at this point, unless they're keeping things under wrap.
Yeah.
So the Flying Dutchman guy that she sees at the end, I mean, that actor might go do something else. Sam, I think Sam, the actor who plays Sam, somebody told me he's like in a play right now.
Yeah, especially the longer gap you take.
Yeah.
The more likelihood other people have moved on and have other things going on.
Exactly, like the show we haven't started yet, but we spent like 30 minutes talking about a couple episodes ago. That's why some storylines were a little bit adjusted in Manifest.
Because let's not sour this
when it got moved to
Netflix,
not everyone could be on. But yeah, we're not going to sour this by watching, which we're going to watch tonight, by the way.
Oh.
You like Manifest.
Let's just keep talking so we don't have to. All right. Well, that is our. Do you have anything else to say about Ted Lasso?
The only thing about Ted Lasso I have to say is barbecue sauce.
Barbecue sauce.
Thanks for listening to this episode of We Watch TV, a podcast about the TV shows we watch. You can find more from Hope on Twitter @LilRunner or on Instagram @LilRunner1485. And Daniel is on Twitter @TheRealHoboDan. Drop us a line if you like the show or have a question you'd like us to address on a future show. Music for today's podcast was provided by Your Tunes from Pixabay. Artwork was created using the AI program Midjourney with prompts written by Daniel.